All right, welcome to live stream number 2. I have no idea how this is going to work. I'm not even sure we're live. I'm not 100% sure the technology is actually hanging together. But I'm going to assume we're live because nothing has blown up yet. Segue time. The Raptors blew up in the fourth quarter, almost gave up that lead, and ended up winning by 3 points, 108, 111. Andrew, what's the difference between the third quarter and the fourth quarter there?
Trick or treat Norman Powell. I think he was terrible from the 3-point line, and a couple of silly turnovers by VanVleet midway through the fourth quarter as well that were just kind of confounding quick shots. A lot of Yuta Watanabe in important moments early in the fourth too, and I thought he played well, but fourth quarter minutes are a little bit different than every other minute in the game. So look, they built enough margin for error to withstand being scoreless for the first 5 minutes of the fourth, and they were able to execute really nicely in crunch time moments to fend off a furious rally.
And I'd say, if you compare the first 3 quarters, one thing that I noticed at least was the fact that their transition D was pretty good, and the Hornets, who were playing on a back-to-back, and the Raptors were well rested. The Raptors made a conscious effort to actually push the ball up the court. You saw several long passes after the rebound where Pascal, OG caught it pretty much underneath the key, which enabled them to really quickly get into their good positions and ended up scoring. In the fourth, as the legs got tired, a lot of those opportunities weren't there. And also, the Hornets went into a zone, which forced the Raptors really to play in a more methodical, and they really had to probe much harder in that fourth quarter than the first three. But let's go with the first three, man. It felt like the team was, not for the first time, very loose. All the pieces were kind of working together. Boucher was hitting threes. Norm wasn't terrible. OG was awesome. A lot of things kind of fit together, and you kind of were like, of course this is the Raptors. Of course these are the real Raptors. Of course. Oh, it's like that Louis C.K. bit he does. Of course. Of course this is the Raptors.
Of course, yeah, exactly. No, and what's crazy is we've still been wondering, is Chris Boucher really this guy? Is he really some sort of reliable three-point shooter? And I still think the jury's out on that. But the hands he showed today, catching a couple of really difficult passes and finishing on a pick and roll. He was kind of caught in no man's land, takes a dribble and does a little 8-foot turnaround bank shot. Where did that come from? But the hands are amazing. And in the first half, they really looked like they just were playing free and loose. And the other thing that helped them was LaMelo Ball didn't play that many minutes, because whenever he was on the floor, he was terrifying. And so you just took a sigh of relief when he wasn't on the floor. And there were a couple of possessions, too, that I felt like Charlotte, it looked like either Rozier or Graham kind of froze Ball out, actually. Just maybe they didn't want the 19-year-old to have all the shine or something like that. But he was incredible. So whenever he was off the floor, which was a lot of the first half, that helped the Raptors build the lead as well, I thought.
Ball was part of the comeback by the Hornets. He hit one shot from mid-court with 18 seconds left, on the clock. But we'll get to the mini collapse, let's call it. But Boucher is, man, I'm used to opposing teams' announcers being surprised by him. I was on Twitter today after ages, and I actually posted something. And one of the things I posted was he's averaging about 3. This kid can play moments from the other team's announcers who've never heard of this guy, don't know who he is, first time they're seeing him, or they've checked a box score and now they're seeing the live thing. So I'm kind of used to that. But to watch Jack Armstrong still be continually surprised by this guy is new level of, my God, this guy is something. And one play I want to call out, you call out a bunch, but the one that I like is that he caught the ball in a similar situation that I described, long pass, early offense. He catches the ball near the hoop, but the defender's there. But this time he has the wherewithal. I love that word, wherewithal. He has the wherewithal to grab the ball, compose himself, turn around, and he's long enough so he can tilt his angle while still having a decent look, and he finishes it off the glass.
And if there's one other play I wanted to outline by Boucher is he was in semi-transition and he caught the ball around the free throw line. And Steve Kerr would always praise Andre Iguodala for this play, where it would be semi-transition. He would get the ball. He wouldn't quite have the number, so he would just pull up at the free throw line and survey all of these options he had, and everything would kind of come to fruition. So he just was in control, stopped at the foul line, and I think kicked to Lowry for a three-pointer. And it just showed this maturity and not rushing anything, not being too excited about this run that he's on. That was really, really impressive. So, like, I'm still... And this is someone, and I've watched every G League game he played since he joined the Raptors 905, and I didn't quite see this coming. But everything outside the three seems really sustainable, and maybe the three is something for real as well.
Yeah, and Blake raised that point, like when he was on this little thing we're doing last time, is that he's still not convinced of the 3-point shot. Like, it's getting there, but it's not convincing. But when you see the guy hit, like, what was he today? Like 2 for 4 from 3, 8 for 12 overall, and his percentages are pretty high from 3 at this point. The sample size is getting bigger and bigger, and the shot it seems less and less awkward. So I'm inclined to think this is a more like we have a steal here.
Yeah, and the fact is, I think you might be safe to say he's an average 3-point shooter, which would be 34 to 36%, and I'm not sure you'd think they'd get that out of him, especially after what he shot last year. And now you need that from him when you know that the one thing I'll conclude on the season is that Aaron Baines isn't for me. So the fact that he's seems to be out of the rotation or playing those those early Siakam rookie minutes where he would play the first 8 minutes and never would see the floor again. I don't know if that's his destiny, but he's filling in real well.
And you mentioned Baines there, and you saw kind of the difference in Charlotte's approach when either the two are on the floor. With Biyombo in there and Baines in there, much easier assignment for Biyombo to kind of have an impact because he's closer to the paint. Obviously, with Boucher, he pulls him out. And really, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I think that 3-point shot is the differentiator between him starting. Like, leave the blocks. Like, just assume the blocks are even. Assume everything else is sort of even. The 3-point shot is the differentiator here.
The thing is with Baines is he had no excuse. In the first quarter, he got out-rebounded on the defensive glass 3 or 4 times when he had position. What are you there for if not to grab an easy defensive rebound against Biyombo, who, yeah, I know he works the offensive glass, but what are you there for? So I imagine Baines' confidence is pretty low at this point, but you figure some people say a free throw will get you going, get your offense going. Well, maybe an easy defensive rebound will get you going, and he wasn't even providing that. So
that's such bullshit. A free throw will get you going? Like
it's a saying. Okay, fine. But listen, shooters do say that it helps. A free throw.
A free throw, yeah, okay.
But in any case, with Baines, if you got to fill some role at some point. If you're not going to provide the 3-point shooting that he provided for Phoenix last year, then be the energy guy that Chris Boucher was. Yeah. Be someone that can annoy people on the glass or at least grab a routine rebound. And right now he's not providing any of that.
Yeah. Let's look at some questions. Sorry if I completely messed this up, but one guy is proposing a massive trade of some sort. Cleveland get Tim Hardaway. Sorry, Jonathan. The Raps deserve to lose that game. We're not scoring the last couple of minutes. Why would you not score the last 2 minutes of a basketball game? I don't understand. Like, I don't get it.
The Raps totally deserve to win that game because they built that cushion. And also at the end of the second quarter and early in the third, Malik Monk hit 2 ridiculous threes. Devontae Graham was shooting terribly, hit 2 ridiculous threes. And I think Rozier hit 2 really difficult threes. There were like 18 points that on average they should get like 3 of them. And they still managed to have a good lead throughout that unsustainable run. They didn't get down on that, and they were able to suck the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter and still win because they built that lead. So they definitely deserved.
Yeah. So let's come back a little later to the point. Would this work against better teams than Charlotte? But let's go through some of the players today. OG was excellent, and I think there was one play I think everybody's going to talk about. That one is when he had the ball on the left block, he drove in and found a cutting Baines, I think, for a dunk on the baseline. Like, he actually jumped up to pass, and it almost like a half look away pass, found Baines, scored. First time you saw, well, not the first time, but you saw OG a little bit more comfortable with the ball in his hands as a creator. Even though he only had 2 assists, you're sort of seeing him looking to create more. His head looks up more. He's scanning the scene a little bit more than he's used to. Compare that to last year when he's primarily, almost entirely a 3-point option, like just parked on the perimeter. Like, what have you seen this year and in this game with him kind of getting more involved in the offense than just being like a 3-point shooter?
He made 2 early 3-point shots, which I think gave him a lot of confidence. And he's just so strong on the ball inside. Like, it's really hard to rip it away from him, especially when he turns his back to you at any time. He's just so strong, always provides that mismatch inside. So I think once that 3-point shot is going, then he feels more confident going to the basket. There was a moment maybe 3 or 4 games ago when OG made a shot and you saw Norm Powell grab OG's head and just try to shake him like, you can do this. You can be you can get out of this funk. Funny for Powell to be the one to say that, but you could see that OG's confidence was sort of shaken early on, I think, in the season. But the last few games, he's made open threes. In the Sacramento game, he went 3 for 5 from the corner from 3. I think 4 for 6 overall. So that's got to provide a lot of confidence as he goes to the basket, and the playmaking will come along. Yeah, I think it's just the fact that he's just feeling it from distance has really helped him.
And I almost feel like he's surprising himself with some of the plays he's making, because he's really never done that consistently before. So it's just good, and sort of like, and this is kind of like what the analysts or everybody sort of predicted and hoped to achieve. So OG, I'd say, is ahead of the course, like ahead of his plan of development based on whatever games we played so far. It's been pretty much all good news. More good news for Stanley Johnson, who has essentially at this point just taken that any question marks that were there on who would be the first point guard off the bench. I mean, would you have picked Stanley Johnson as the guy in preseason, as the guy to come steal minutes ahead of all these, like Matt Thomas was being talked about, like Stanley Johnson, man.
It's interesting because in the last game, I was watching Johnson play and I'm like, man, get him off the floor. He's like, anytime he starts to dribble, you're feeling there's a turnover coming. And then Blake Murphy and Kelsey O'Brien were like, what's with all the Stanley Johnson hate? He's like playing really well. I look at the stat line. He's 3 for 5. He's got like 2 steals, 1 turnover or something. I'm like, it's interesting, to see the game through someone else's perspective. Like, he is playing really well. A lot of great defensive possessions, tapaways, that help side block he had. I think he was covering one person. I think it was Biombo that he blocked at the rim. It was incredible. And there was one time he came down to the 905 last year. Am I allowed to swear on this, or shouldn't I? He was just there to fuck around. He was just there to fuck around. He was like, and Jama Malalela, the coach, like, he basically admitted it. He came down. He's like, he wasn't getting minutes with the big club. It didn't seem like he was ever going to be part of the rotation. He just shot 26 balls for the fun of it. And it's like, yeah, this guy's probably not going to be here for that much longer. And now it becomes this reliable defensive piece who, and the threes he takes, like, generally they're pretty, like, they're good shots to take. Like, he gets a little extra space. He sees he's not being guarded. It's like, well, they probably told me I got to take it or else. Yeah. So the decisions he tends to make are good, but for one or two that just look really bad, that stick out. And that's why most people sort of shudder whenever he's sort of handling the ball.
Yeah. So Death 4K is really not enjoying this win because it was against Gordon Hayward was out, and we'll come back to what will this work against better teams just momentarily. Like, we'll go through a couple more players, like VanVleet is 6 for 20 today, 5 for 15 from 3. But if you look at his overall body of work this season, we talked a lot in preseason about he sort of had to expand his range in order to really compensate for his height. And it's always like I don't know, man. Like, is he going to really expand his range? Like, is that the solution? Expanding your range? Like, go further away from the rim? It doesn't pass the smell test, right? But to his credit, like, he has done exactly that. And against good teams or bad teams, he has been extremely successful.
You can give him a pass for today. He actually took one quick long 2 that was bizarre. It went in. And he started off really well. He kind of tailed off in the fourth quarter. I think that's when his shooting percentage went way down. But I mean, 6 for 20. Yeah, that's not great. But a couple of those are just going to go down in any other game. Yeah. I just found that a couple of his turnovers were a little suspect, and everyone's allowed to have an off night, and this was probably his first off night of the season where he wasn't just the most reliable guy on the floor. He's making an all-star bid at this point, so he was quote due for a down night.
Yeah, give him a break on that. And you know, like with VanVleet, with any point guard, I mean, turnovers are always like we should always look at turnovers with a little bit of grain of salt and not just focus on that stat too much. Especially with VanVleet, who is really handling the ball the majority of the time, right? So the turnovers, it's always a suspect stat for me. Like, are they turnovers that completely disrupt the flow of the offense and put you in a hole, like almost psychologically, or does it change the tempo of the game, or is it a turnover that, like, a bad decision that sparked like a 6-0 run for the other team? That's the turnovers that hurt, and I don't think he's making those kinds of turnovers.
I agree, except for today. I thought there were two in the fourth quarter that really, it felt, they were semi-transition plays that I really felt the ball needed to be pulled out, and he just kind of forced it. I mean, that's part of his game, is getting into like the cracks of the defense and trying to create something. So it's not, again, you give him a pass for that. He just didn't have a great game tonight. That's it.
Okay. So we'll get to, guys, we will get to whether we are a legit contender in a bit. Spoiler, no. But give me your view on the Norm Powell phenomenon. What's happening with him? Like a big picture view, like his career. Forget about like a spell here, a spell there. Like, what is his career at this point?
It's funny, a colleague of mine just tweeted, 6 years in, I have no idea who Norm Powell is. And you can tell when he's forcing it. When he takes to the hoop, he puts the ball in his arms like he's a running back, because he's going to bull his way through, and he's going to make sure that, like, he's going to protect the ball. And it's like, he's got to be more selective at times. But in the second quarter, he had 3 transition baskets that kind of looked all the same, where it was a bit dicey, but he got that separation because he's so strong, and like he can explode to the basket. And look, he went 2 for 8 or something from 3. I know he was 1 for 7 at one point. Most of them were good looks. He's got to take those. These are the thing. His 3-point shots, all of them, I'm sure Nick Nurse wants him to take. It's just those drives to the hoop that look really. And the one time where he threw the ball above the backboard and asked for a foul, I'm like, Norm, let's go. Let's get back on defense.
No, he didn't throw it at the backboard. He threw it at the sky. It was not this way. It was this way. But he did score on that possession. So credit. But that's Norm right there. That sequence is Norm right there.
Right. Yeah. Trick or treat Norm. It's a 4-year, $40 million contract. A guy that can swing a game, be a great piece off the bench. Great value. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get, but with that price, you got to be thrilled in general for what he's done. I mean, and again, he can have a bad season, and then he could swing game 4 of a playoff series just by starting that. He has that potential, and that's really what you're looking for. Someone in the playoffs who can make an impact, and he still can do that.
Oh, I can make myself less bright. I look less pale now. Okay, that's better.
You look at your phone.
Okay, so let's address. Well, Matt, I do want to talk a little bit about Siakam. He's taken an extreme amount of heat for, I find, absolutely no reason. I really do not. I have not heard one single argument from anybody which explains why Siakam should be criticized for pretty much anything over the last, 10, 12 days. He started off the season slow. Yeah, he missed a couple of jumpers. I think we sort of have to recognize and temper our expectations, and I've said this before like a couple times, that this guy is learning. Like, he is fully in learning mode right now. In every analyst, every coach will look at Siakam as a developing player, not a developed player. But somehow we seem to be judging him from the lens of a developed player.
And that's because he's just been anointed as the first option. So that's what you expect in the max contract. But the first half, I thought he was so patient. Mm-hmm. He took very few shots, just made a nice couple of hockey assists he had, actually, just driving and kicking, beautiful stuff, and really being patient. He only had a couple of possessions where once he dribbles face up more than 2 or 3 times, that's when I think, okay, you're like only like really 1A superstars can dribble that much and create something positive. And I don't think he's the guy that can do that. But only a couple of times has he done that. And the fact that he's absorbed this mountain of criticism and he's really come out of it as a really strong. He had a great West Coast swing. He's averaging 25 over the last 5 games. and he looks well. And I think Nick Nurse had my favorite quote. Nick Nurse said his gait looks better. And I totally see that. He's running with a bit more grace. That Euro step at the rim is a little sharper, and he looks. And he's not a finished product, but in the meantime, his reads are incredible. His defense is great, and it's just those moments where he over dribbles that he'll correct.
Yeah. Let's talk about Yuta as one of the commenters is referring to. Lanky, athletic dude, can shoot. Obviously, Nick Nurse prefers him over some of the options he has on the bench. You can see why. This guy, I mean, like most NBA players, his development is a function of the minutes allocated to him. But from what I've seen so far, he's not a defensive liability. He can shoot over pretty much anybody based on his height. Can't create his own shot right now. Not that we need him to. Is good when he catches the ball and drives. So he's not strictly a three-point shooter. He can put it on the floor and can go either direction, like I've noticed. Overall, and he's lanky, and he has length. He is pretty much a perfect like end of the bench guy you can bring in for any sort of configuration tweak you want to make.
For an end of the bench guy who can make an impact and just know where he's supposed to be. He's just a professional like that. He knows the right spots. In the preseason, he had this one drive and kick to Malachi Flynn where he looked off the defense just a little slightly and then passed and it created all this space. And there's a maturity to his game. There's a knowledge about it. And the fact that he's like Lamar Odom height and length is something I'm sure really fun for Nurse because you can depend on him on the defensive end while he sort of has those growing pains on the offensive side. So he's super promising. You know, as someone who had watched a couple of other guys in the G League not make it over him in the preseason, I was a bit concerned. I thought someone else, and the guy named Henry Allenson, I thought was a way better shooter. But Utah is dynamic. He can not only make the three, can drive and kick, like you said, and defend, whereas Allenson is just a three-point specialist. So it's who's going to make that impact that you can rely on. And so far, Watanabe is a bonus that Nick Nurse is continuing to
and some people want us to talk a little bit about the imbalance on the roster. We clearly do. I mean, we have really one playable big, really, which is Boucher. Like one guy you could actually trust to do what needs to be done, and then you have two sort of liabilities or people who are very weak in large areas of the game, which the Raptors, the way they want to play, make it almost it's impossible almost to play them without giving up something significant. And then we have a whole plethora of guards, right? I mean, all the way down to name your guy. How much? And I asked this question to I think Sarah Khalil, who was on the Pardon the Corruption show. Is that how much do you want to invest, and how much wheeling and dealing do you want to do to address that hole, given that this team's ceiling is still fairly limited, I think, for this season? Are you going to make trades to make it to the second round, or is that advisable?
Yeah, you're going to give up an asset. You're going to give up a draft pick to get to possibly move you into the second round, which probably just can't happen. It seems unlikely with where this team is. But with Baines and Len, you're going to go up against Joel Embiid and Brook Lopez from the Bucks. So you're going to need that size at some point. So are you going to completely downsize and actually not have a center on your team? It seems like that wouldn't be wise, given like playoffs are all about matchups. And Aaron Baines has shown himself to be a playable center. Like, is this 9-game, 10-game sample? It's 11 at this point. Is that really what you're going to go by? Like, let's see if you can fit him into a system that is a culture that, you know, everyone knows each other and stuff like that. It's difficult. Give him a little bit of more time. I'm sure Nurse is aware of that. It's just he's been so bad and he's missed so many little bunnies around the rim that it's hard to keep him out there. You can't tread water with him on the floor, but he's all you got at this point. And I feel like you need a center. Alex Len's not an NBA player. I don't think he's Blake said it last week. He's a third string center, and like, what's a third string center? A totally replacement guy.
I think somebody made a nice comparison for Utah. Lamar Odom.
I just said Lamar Odom. That's what I said.
Oh, this okay. Nice.
The commenter said that as well. Nice.
Oh, I thought you said. Oh, you said that. Okay, sorry. I thought he said that and you didn't say that. Okay, so credit not to Death 4K, but to Andrew Damelin. All right. Were you surprised that the Raps were not part of the package that involved for Jared Allen and Prince, that the whole Dante Exum trade? Like, are you surprised the Raptors didn't get in there?
No, I'm not surprised. I mean, Exum and no, were they supposedly what were they going to?
Well, Jared Allen is the guy that's of interest here.
Sure, that'd be a nice upgrade. That'd be a huge upgrade, but that's
here's the thing, man. I feel obviously we don't know, but I feel Masai is looking for a player in the market that is not just a stopgap for this season, not just a seasonal upgrade, but somebody who has upside, right? Because he's in his mind, he probably has a 2-3 year window where the Raptors can get good. And if you're going to give up an asset, you got to get a guy who will fit in that window while having an upwards trajectory. And those guys are much, much harder to find than your run-of-the-mill, let's upgrade Aaron Baines with, I don't know, man, like pick your guy, right? So
Marcus All.
Yeah. I think that's the issue with why we're not seeing activity so far in the Raptors landscape. And also what you mentioned is that the sample size is just not big enough, even though we kind of know that there's an imbalance on the floor. Yeah,
it's when do the Raptors know what they have? Do they know what they have in Baines by this point?
I think the entire league knows what they have in Baines at this point.
Probably, right? Yeah. And he's not this bad, but I think they know.
Yeah.
I think they know who they have, and so I think the only person they don't really know if Boucher is legit. But other than that, it's like 11 games in, you probably know what you are as a scrappy first round out or upset into the second round. And personally, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with a competitive team. I'm cool with Lowry sticking it out to the end of the contract. Where do you stand on trading Lowry? Let's just say you could get.
I think trade Lowry it's too early. I think it's too early to call that. You got to sort of make a decision what you're doing with the season. I think the two go hand in hand. Like, are we making a small move to kind of upgrade our center? And like, if we're able to upgrade our center position and we're actually half decent and we get a good package, maybe we trade Norm for something which is valued more than Norm. And we're actually a good team and try to compete, keep Lowry. But if we've decided that this really is a year where we're totally comfortable and cool with the first round exit, then it totally makes sense. And the trade that comes to mind the trade partner that comes to mind obviously is Philly. I mean, it doesn't take, a lot of thought to figure that one out. Go home. Philly has a bit of a gap at that position as well. They have assets they want to trade, discard really. And the Raptors could possibly get in on that. And the picks would also come the other way, I would imagine, if possible. So I think that's where I am with the Lowry trade. Not yet. Maybe a little later on in the season. And as you said, once we get more of a sample size, maybe 1/3 of the season in, you can sort of make that call.
And I think if you're thinking just strictly title, then but just as a fan, it's difficult to see. It would be difficult to see Lowry go, and perhaps in an ideal scenario, because of that trade, you go from the second to the third round, which is very unlikely. Let's just say you knew that's what was going to happen. I still wouldn't love just trading away the best player in franchise history, who's just still so much fun to root for. There's still an emotional element to this game, and that's not Masai's duty to worry about whatsoever. So he ought to make that trade if it presents itself.
Yeah.
But just from my perspective, I would just the way he's playing the best he's ever played this season. He's 34 years old. That charge he took in the first or second quarter, where he just absolutely, it was a long sort of shift over he had to make. Just steps right in and takes the contact. A couple of nice defensive possessions on LaMelo too. He's playing so well right now. You would just hate to see him go from a sentimental point of view.
Yeah. Maxi, I think somebody asked the question, who would you want for Lowry in a Philly trade? And you would imagine somebody like Maxi would be coming the other way, along with a pick. I don't think he's enough, but that sounds like a half decent call. So Andrew, let's wrap this up. I mean, it is a win against the freaking Hornets missing.
It feels big. It feels 3-8 feels a lot better than 2-9.
Yeah. I mean, Anybody else you want to talk about today that kind of caught your eye, or any observation generally for the game?
I just liked, just to wrap it up with, to start and wrap it up with Boucher, how he moved without the ball in the fourth quarter and just presented himself in the perfect spots, like timing spots where Siakam found a cutting Lowry at the free throw line, and then boom, Boucher comes along the baseline for that alley-oop, I think, and another layup he had. Just the sense he had, not just the three-point shooting, but the awareness he's had on the court is something that is starting to make me a believer, and I think people should feel good about that. Also, the fact that it's been harped on a lot, but they have almost a neutral net rating, so they're not really a 3-8 team. They got the Hornets again. They should get another win, and with 10 playoff spots available, no home court advantage, it's not time to panic.
Yeah, and I'd say I will address like some of the comments here on why this felt like it's the old adage. It felt like a loss. You know what I mean? And yeah, we gave up a lead, and I thought the Raptors, whenever they tried the zone, it did not seem to work. I thought Charlotte was excellent at moving the ball and break. I think I posted one clip on Twitter where how easily they busted the zone, and when you're shooting hot from outside, like Charlotte was, they shot 45% from three. It's very easy to beat a zone defense, and that's sort of why Charlotte was able to get back in against a different team. You know, that 5-point lead or 4-point lead we had late on probably is in much greater threat than it was against Charlotte. So there's definitely some warning signs here, notably our defense, which really, if you look at the body of work again for the season, has been somewhat, it's been disappointing. A lot of the things that worked last year did not work because the personnel are different. We have Baines instead of Ibaka. Like, all these things are different. And I feel really, leave the offense aside. I feel Siakam will only get better. VanVleet is improving. Like, he's learning. He's finding himself as a primary scorer almost. It's the defense that I don't see really a great solution for right now. Like, I don't see a button they can press or something they can tweak, which suddenly makes them a very good defensive team. So I think that's where Nick Nurse has some thinking to do.
Yeah, just a very quick look ahead to the next game against Charlotte. Let's see how they come out and guard LaMelo, who created open three after open three, especially in crunch time.
Yeah,
let's see what buttons Nurse presses to see if he could limit a rookie who's been absolutely incredible.
And there's a couple guys just going on about how this would not work against a good team. Totally get it. It's not going to work against a good team. Like, I think we may have lost this game against a good team, but we're not playing a good team. We're playing a poor team. And a lot of the times, man, you play up to the level of your opposition, as simple as that. You can't equate the performance in one game against the same performance against a different team, because if you're playing a different team, your mindset is different. Your whole approach to your preparation is different. So this taking something from one context, applying it to the other, it's the premise of the argument is incorrect. Death 4K. That's why I could be wrong, man. What the hell do I know? I'm just telling you what, like, my view on the good team, bad team thing.
No, that's your view, and I totally agree. And also, in speaking with Jamma at the 905, a win's a win. Honestly, it's an NBA team. It's a good team. It's cliched, but seriously, like, it doesn't feel like a loss. It's a win, and you really ought to. It's hard to win in the league. Take the win. Be happy about it. They can still learn from it. They're not like resting on their laurels. They know the lead that they gave up. A win's a win. Be satisfied with that.
Yeah. I think that's wrap it up. If you guys have an idea for what the show is called, the best so far has come from Nick Tutzel, who's gone with the wrap up, which seems pretty. It's okay. The wrap up. I don't know.
I mean, it's tight.
Where do you see OG improving? We sort of talked about that, but final word on OG. What's his next step of development? I'll go first. I think passing. I think playmaking and passing is his next evolution, because that's something that he has not been really asked to do, and now he's starting to do more of it. We saw it in this game. So I think as he handles the ball more, he gets to observe the floor more. He gets to navigate the floor, and with that, he will learn to become a better passer. So I think, to answer your question, passing.
And to
Andrew?
piggyback on that, just because he's so strong backing people down, he's going to attract attention. So making those reads, how quickly can he make those reads and make the right pass out? That'll be the next phase, because he's so strong that he can create open looks for other people.
With that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you for those of you who watched, and thank you for your comments. If you didn't get to them, apologize. We're still learning kind of sort of how to do this, so growing pains and all. So